right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Let's continue that conversation with us here, Professor Peter Kagwanja, who's a policy and advisor and a strategist and also international relations expert, Willis Otieno, Deputy Party Leader, Safina, and Charles Owino, Head of the National Communications Center. Prof, you had a concern with the candidate, Willis has concerns with the promoter, but could it be that our approach was wrong from the onset? We had supporters on the streets of Addis. We had a packed hotel with MPs. Was this the best way to approach a diplomacy sort of assignment?
A friend of mine from Chad, who had just visited Nairobi, called me and asked me, Professor, what's wrong with you Kenyans? And I asked, why? Because I am told that you have taken almost 250 people to Addis Ababa. Obviously, those who are familiar with the scene in Addis Ababa, it is usually, the language is 1+2 or 1+3, meaning the president plus possibly two escorts, two people, one of whom would be the foreign minister, maybe the PS, and somebody else. That's the language. So, and anybody else is not around into the scene of the election. So I think we over-dramatized this. It's part of our business. I guess if Honorable Raila won, it would have given the necessary mood, particularly for Kenya, to drum it from Addis Ababa all the way up to Kondere. That would have made a difference. But for now, I think it's looking very bad. I was reading something from the head of the, what do you call this person in Parliament, the head of budget, Didignoro, and I mean, I wouldn't doubt his figures. It was talking about 470,000 for each one of them. And I think at this time when we are on a shoestring budget, I don't think it's right. I've not looked at the figures.
Even though the Prime Cabinet Secretary said that most of them went there on their own volition.
Well, that's well said than done, because obviously it's money that would be used in a better way.
Okay.
But either way, the point is we didn't really come out well. If you look at the other people from Madagascar and the other, they went simply your wife and a few people helping you. There was no need to over-dramatize that.
Okay.
And as I said, I agree wholesale with my brother about the immediate causes. Our foreign policy is not doing well, and there is no need of lying. We're making goof after goof after goof. So, our neighbors and our Pan-African colleagues are watching how it's going, and therefore this was it.
Yeah.
But now moving to
even back to your concern with the candidate himself. I mean, you know, Raila had former President Olusegun Obasanjo on his side, Cyril Ramaphosa on his side, Felix Tshisekedi on his side. What really happened to his broad network? You say that you're concerned with the candidate, but these are touted as his friends.
The head of state, I mean, I think Kenya put its best foot forward. And I think that's why it was not an embarrassment. At least Mheshimiwa Raila would get up to 22 votes at one point, which would get to 20, 21, and so on. And finally, he dropped off. He didn't give up.
Yeah.
It is the nature of that election. If you're defeated 3 times in a row, you fall off. This was what happened to Madagascar, then it happened, and it always happened.
Because otherwise it would be postponed for a whole year.
No, it would be postponed if there is a tie. You are shifting. You get 22, this one get 25, then you get 25, and then you go like that, then it has to be shifted. And it has only been shifted once, and not for a year, it's for 6 months, with Dlamini Zuma and Jinping. So anyway, the theory, the nature of that election, even if you are alone, you'll have to face the election of the heads of state. That's what happened to Musa Faki in the second term.
Yeah.
He got 51 votes because he was voted by the heads of state. And the same case with Alpha Konare, who was voted. But in this particular case, I think what one would say is the following, that the position for which Kenya had identified Mheshimiwa Raila is such that it's a job that is more of a CEO of a big company, and which requires we're not saying he does not have energy, but we are used to, you know, cycles of life. At a certain level, you do this. So at that level, the CEO was not his job. Look at the person who has been elected for the president of the African Union, the president from Angola. That's basically a more ceremonial position. It is like what Wino was talking about, about the high representative on infrastructure, which was more of a ceremonial job. You go one in and out. It's like a chairman of a board of governors or something like that. Okay. These are the jobs you take at that time. And I think we needed to do a search. There are very many jobs that within the African Union, within IGAD, within East African Community, which would have fitted that stature. Okay. And I think when Uhuru Kenyatta was working with Raila for that kind of a position, that's what they were taking into account. All right. So we failed because, let me make this particular last point. The average age of an African president is 63 today. And the average age of an African is 19.2 years, the median age. Now, so what that means is that when you are faced with your peers, with these people who are not your peers, some are your grandchildren, I don't think it's a good position. So, and why did it happen? Because of our internal politics, the dynamics that propelled us to that level were internal politics, not a very serious consideration of us giving a gift to the Africans. Okay. We could have done alternatively. Now here we are, and we are back to square one. Okay,
we'll come to the politics of it all in just a bit. But Willis, you have a problem with the promoter, which is President William Ruto. But even Raila himself said President William Ruto gave it his all. In fact, it was his idea to run for the AUC chair position. How come President William Ruto couldn't convince his other peers?
Let me start by demystifying a point raised by my brother Charles, that Kenya is not wanted internationally. In fact, to begin with, when we play our diplomacy right, we get seats. Uhuru Kenyatta in his final term, Kenya went for the UN Security Council seat, and Kenya was able to marshal the entire African Union to support the Kenyan candidate. When the matter went vote before the UN, and the competitor for Kenya was the same Djibouti candidate, Kenya won. We won both in Africa, and we won at the global level. So you ask yourself, when did the rain start beating us? And that's why I say our problem as a country started when William Ruto has put his personal interest over national interest. And I've told you in particular, in the SADC region, what is the interest of Kenya being perceived as supporting the rebel movement in DRC? And more so, when they were hosted here in Kenya and they launched the onslaught, they launched their movement here in Nairobi. SADC candidate, the Madagascan, got 10 votes. If SADC had been part of the Raila campaign, had owned the Raila campaign, Raila would have started on the first of the ballot. You will have had a minimum 30 votes. You will only be looking for 3. So if he got 30 votes in the first round, it would have been far much easier for consensus to build around him. But off the ballot, you have a regional bloc that is saying Kenya as a country is hostile to our interests. You mentioned Tshisekedi, you mentioned Ramaphosa. Those are personal friends of Raila Odinga. But Tshisekedi is sitting there to cast a vote for the Kenyan candidate. And that is going to impact on his national interest. Now we have presidents whose national interest supersedes personal interest. I do believe, in all fairness, Tshisekedi will not cast a vote for Raila Odinga, despite being his personal friend that they've known each other for so long. In South Africa today, they are crying about the 13 soldiers who were killed in Goma. They are actually baying for war in South Africa. Ramaphosa, despite being Raila's longtime friend from the 1980s, I'm sure you will be hard-pressed to explain a vote to a friend when the national interest in regard to the conflict in DRC has led to 13 South African soldiers dead. But to what gain are we as Kenyans getting? And that's why I say William Ruto saw this as an opportunity. Raila having announced on his own that I've offered myself to be the candidate, he saw it as an opportunity again to pursue personal interest. And the personal interest was this, that if Raila were to win in the AU, I'll be able to bring myself to get his local political support base. I do believe that if Raila were declared the winner, William Ruto's presidential jet will have landed in Kisumu Airport, you will have gone to Kibuye Catholic Church to pray, you will have done a rally at Kondele, to just create a national wave that will help him to gain that constituency. Now that it did not work, since he was expecting the flowers of Raila victory, it is only in order for him to accept the thorns and wear that crown of thorns on his head. He failed the Kenyan people in this quest. We had the best candidate, he had the strongest credentials so far that you can talk about in the country, but he was failed due to international positioning and personal interest of William Ruto in terms of international relations with other countries. And let me say this, when Amina lost to Faki, again, the issue was SADC. SADC as a region had felt that since Dlamini had only done one term, as SADC they were entitled to do 2 terms, and they proposed Botswana. When Botswana did not go past the first round of voting, SADC countries decided to keep off that election. They did not transfer their votes to the Kenyan candidate. So we must ask ourselves, in terms of even close proximity, we are closer to the SADC region. So Tanzania here is our neighbor, is a member of SADC. Why is it that at all times we are always at loggerheads with SADC? Personal interest supersedes national interest.
Okay. Can we squarely blame this on President William Ruto? Or,
you know, politics is about personal interests. He's pursuing his personal interests is okay. But what I can say is that historically our problems with South Africa did not start today. It started even when we had Mzee Jomo Kenyatta in power. We never supported ANC much during their war compared to the president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, and that forms the reason why Tanzania is part of SADC. So I can't blame SADC's voting pattern on President William Ruto. There could be factors, yes, but you see sometimes when you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name. So you can look for an excuse as to why you don't want, as to why they did not vote Kenyan candidate. But ANC and Kenya have had long-standing issues, starting from the time of President Jomo Kenyatta. Equally, there's issue of age. I don't think age is a big issue. It's just but a number. As much as the average age for presidents is 63, in this country we have been lucky. We have had 2 very old presidents. We had Mzee Jomo Kenyatta at over 80. He was still our darling. We had Mwai Kibaki. So I don't think age is a very big issue. Sometimes also you must understand that Kenya's placement, apart from South Africa, Nigeria and Egypt, we are still a large economy and many people admire Kenya. But just like a beautiful girl, many a times you get a lot of people who may not just like a lady because she's more attractive to more men. And therefore you can give her a bad name and call her Malaya. So Kenya is equally a very good, one of the best countries in Africa you can admire. South Africa, despite their big economy, it is still not in the hands of Africans. Nigeria, the same. So basically around, we are a beautiful country and many people admire us. Anything can happen. Okay. Because if you look at it, why would Ghana not vote us? Why would Namibia maybe not vote us, despite the fact that we supported them? It's only that SADC took a general interest, and they also had a candidate. And remember, Zambia is also fighting for to chair the African Development Bank. And you remember the other day when they were called for a meeting in South Africa twice, because South Africa was trying to bring in a candidate. Zambia refused to go until South Africa stepped down. So I can say that let us not look at this thing on President William Ruto. But when again you talk about personal interest, why not? President William Ruto would also want to get a second term. He must, in politics you put your interest first, then you put the interests of the people. Because even in case of an accident, whether it is air accident, whether it is water accident, you are always taken to make sure you are safe. consider your safety,
Yeah.
then take the safety of the next person.
Okay.
I know you may not like it, but we are living with realities. Even in politics,
now that
majority of the people...
Now that you brought up the issue of whether President William Ruto was looking for a second term and that was his interest, let's bring up one of the things.
No, I'm not saying that
said.
was his interest. I'm saying he also has an interest as an individual.
All right.
And he must go for also what favors him.
Okay.
Just the same thing President Uhuru Kenyatta did after winning elections.
So
he
what
took
would have
Raila on
favored
his
him
side.
in this arithmetic?
Whatever President Ruto is doing with Raila is similar to what President Uhuru did with Raila.
Okay. And that
to bring him in government.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of bringing him in government...
Let me just explain to him something. Ghana did not vote for Kenya purely because when we were doing the Commonwealth elections, Kenya did not vote with Ghana. You know you are a continental election as a country, and then a fellow African country is going for a Commonwealth position, and you vote against him. I mean, that's why I say it is William Ruto, period.
Let's make this local now, and Prof, I'll start with you on this. There's something the president said at the dinner right after the loss at the AUC, and this is what he mentioned.
I am also proud of this moment, because we've been here before. Just remember, a few months ago, as a country, we were faced with a very serious moment. And we were wondering which way Kenya. But you know what? That moment, when we all thought it was dark, it gave us a new beginning. We ended up with a broad-based government that brought many Kenyans and the country together and gave us the momentum that exists today. I am very confident that this moment is going to give birth to yet another moment for us as a country to work together to build a new momentum for Kenya.
Prof, what is that moment the president is speaking about?
Of course, what we have after the Gen Z revolt is a broad-based government, which is just going back to what we are good at, a post-election kind of agreements that lead to the liquidation of genuine opposition and the collapsing of both opposition and government into one more grell. And I think that has become almost part of our political culture after every election, and that raises the question, what's the need for a very expensive election, which costs us about $25 per every voter, in order to secure the sanctity of the vote. So that is the moment we're talking about. And now that we have the broad-based government, what happens that now that Raila is back home and he doesn't have a job as we were expecting him to have it? Now, the truth of the matter is that Raila is a politician. And being a politician and politics is a game of the possible, and politics is a game of power. He's going to go for the co-presidency. He has always done that. By co-presidency is to be a co-leader. We use the concept of the co-principal. So he's going to push for a government that is genuinely Raila Odinga, William Ruto government, which means an increase in the cabinet, for him being elevated possibly to a deputy president or prime minister. We have already started hearing about NADCO expanded. NADCO is simply about creating other positions and so on. So this is the scenario we are going to witness immediately. But let me guarantee you that Raila is not going to be a rebel. He's not going to rebel against Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto, sorry.
Yeah.
The reason being...
You think they'll work together?
Not even working together. It is the logical thing to do. Otherwise, he's not going to spoil the party for his colleagues who have just become into the government. It is not wise to just spoil the party. They have just entered the government. These are his senior principals. So he's going to murmur here and complain here, push Ruto there and here, camaraderie here and there, push here and there. That's what we are going to see until possibly March, April next year.
Okay.
But the game is going to change because we will approach the election. That is where I'm saying that we'll now start seeing Raila either moving towards scenario 2022,
yeah,
where he leaves the government and goes to opposition, or is given an offer he cannot refuse and staying in the government. So again, we are looking at all these things happening. But for now, the push is for more incremental. And I think that's what the president was referring to, that they have now to reorganize the government to accommodate Raila in the government. The big question is, what happened to Musalia Mudavadi? What happens to my brother Abraham Kidiki? What happens to Wetangula? Because there must be some reorganization. Reorganizations have losses. I can't wait to see how this one is going to be seen, to be reorganized.
All right.
It's going to be sweet.
Willis, what is the future of the broad-based government based on what the president just said?
You know, the broad-based government is a fallacy because it's a government that was formed to respond to a popular demand, a people's revolution. The Gen Z had led the people of Kenya to demand for a new government system, that one that is accountable, that addresses their economic challenges. And the finance bill was just but the trigger of that demand for a society that makes meaning to them economically. As we speak right today, the political establishment responded by coming up with a broad-based government. Is it addressing the problems that Gen Zs presented to the people of Kenya and the leadership? It is not. If anything, I assure you, Mbadi is coming up with a new finance bill, and you're going to see increase in taxes, charges, and levies.
You said there'd be no increases.
I assure you, anybody can write it down, there'll be increase in taxes, charges, and levies in the coming finance bill. And yet, that was the trigger that led the young people of Kenya to lead all of us into demanding for a better society. So broad-based government is not responding to the needs. So Raila Odinga and his troops, ODMers, can decide to politically walk straight, fully, into broad-based government. But there'll be political consequences for everybody. He can now go in and take the skunk of William Ruto that Bani talked about and fully immerse himself into it. The people of Kenya will have a date to decide if that is the kind of skunk that they want to continue with. The other option that he has, and if I was in that political space, I will be saying, as it is today, of the 7.2 million votes William Ruto got, he has lost 4.5 million of them, we are sure, from the mountain region. Raila Odinga, of the 6.9 million votes that he got, he has lost, on average, the 1 million votes he got from Mount Kenya, maybe has lost the Kaba vote that Kalonzo brought to him, so he has 5.3 million votes. William Ruto has 2.7 million votes. He's running on Raila Odinga's energy. If I was in Raila's circle, I would say, in this particular instance, then I have the most votes in this arrangement, and I should be made the president. You become the prime cabinet secretary or the prime minister as you so desire. I demand the position of president, and ODM should be asking of this. Yeah. Otherwise, we are going to witness what I heard my brother Charles talk about here, of people around Raila Odinga going to say, give me positions. You get new ministerial positions, you get more PSS, you get ambassadorials. But since 2013, there's one person in that political space that, well, everybody else around him gets seats, MPs, governors, senators, ministers, PSS. There's one person who never gets anything, and that is Raila Odinga himself. People are running on the back of Raila Odinga to get positions for themselves, and I'm sure in that space today, there are those who are saying, we cannot rock the boat. We must find accommodation now fully in government, because they know at the end of the day, Raila will not become a minister.
Okay.
He will not become a PS. He will not become an ambassador. He will just remain that which he is today, Raila without a portfolio. But let me also say this. One thing about William Ruto and Raila Odinga in this arrangement is this. Who decampaigned Raila Odinga first to all the African heads of states? When Raila was the AU special envoy on infrastructure, one of the first things William Ruto did was to write to the AU to demand that Raila Odinga be removed as the special envoy of the AU on infrastructure. And the AU removed him. Raila actually had to stand down as the special envoy of the AU. Now, you wrote to the same body, to the same presidents, telling them this man is destabilizing my country. Then now you go back to them and ask them, can you please make this man the chairman of the same commission? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Okay. Charles, what is the future of
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Because in 2007, when Raila obviously won elections in Kenya and he was denied broad daylight, we came up with a government of national unity, and Raila became prime minister. I didn't hear this noise. The other day, when we had the elections the other day, and President Uhuru Kenyatta had Raila in the other arrangement where they were calling themselves brothers, I didn't hear this noise. But I'm now hearing this noise because of whatever is happening, because of special hatred that some individuals have for their brother, William Ruto, who is a Kenyan. All the same, NADCO is not about positions only. There are so many things about NADCO.
I know about that.
And I believe that when NADCO was coming into place, Raila had not even started working closely with President William Ruto. And some of the members of NADCO, we cannot run away from the recommendations because Kalonzo Musyoka was a co-chair in NADCO and is still in Azimio. One of the major things was restructuring of IEBC, which is currently going on. We also had the issues of boundaries laminations, in which we have had a lot of challenges, because the last time it was done was in 2012. And we need at least a minimum of 8 years to review and 12 years to review, meaning we ought to have reviewed by last year, April. And one of the recommendations is that we can be able to, if Parliament could get away, that we could continue with the process of boundary laminations. So another issue was audit of presidential elections. We have not had IEBC for a number of times. But the major issue now that is bringing problems is governance issues, promoting national unity, inclusivity in public appointments, and adequate balancing. I think that is what President Ruto is trying to do. So I'm just saying, Willis, that now that Ruto has remained with very few votes and you are a presidential candidate, you are a deputy party leader, I just wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, my brother.
Just try your level best. Don't cry too much. But what I know is that President William, people are hoping, people like Willis were hopeful that when Raila comes back, and is still hopeful, that he will join the active part of opposition, and Raila be used as usual, the way he's usually used. And then at the end of the day, he does not become a president. I think Raila is old enough. He needs time to rest. He has done his level best. They fought so hard for multi-party democracy, for the Constitution of Kenya. We, the slightly younger people, though I'm not young, we should make use of the good Constitution and multi-party democracy and urge Kenyans to elect people on issue-based matters. But equally...
So you think he should retire?
Who?
Raila.
In politics, you don't retire. You can slow in whatever you are doing.
So you think he should slow down?
Yes, you can slow down in what you are doing, especially in him running as a presidential candidate as a person. I would not encourage him to run as a presidential candidate. My own personal feeling. But I think that as an old man, he still has an opportunity to guide whichever leadership that is in place to ensure that we have a peaceful country. What I always tell Kenyans is that we may disagree on so many things, but the most important thing, do we destroy our country because of an individual? If today a number of Kenyans don't, if many Kenyans feel that William Ruto should not get a second term, then we simply move on and keep on pushing him because we have opposition. And when it comes to 2027, you vote him out. I think that's the best thing. But we can't destroy this country. It just takes seconds to destroy a country because maybe we have a hatred for an individual. But a discussion for another day. I think Kenyans should look at Kenya as at June 2022.
Right.
What was our status in terms of our economy and what is our status today?
Okay.
So when we look at that and we are honest with ourselves, we can realize that President William Ruto has put his best foot forward. He may have his weaknesses, which is normal, but he has put our country at a better place than what we were when he took over.
All right, I'll take a quick break, gentlemen. When we come back, we'll get some feedback and then get some closing remarks from you on which way forward for the country. And keep them coming at Trevor Media, at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. We're back in just a short while. You for staying in the Monday Report. Let's bring up the feedback before we take closing remarks from my guests here. Trevor Mbija to Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. Dr. Boni Halwale sends in his condolences. This one is following the death of the legislator. It is with a very heavy heart that I accept the death of a brother, political student and friend. There goes a gentleman. May the soul of Moses Malulu Injendi rest in eternal peace. My condolences to his family, friends, colleagues, and the people of Malava constituency, whom he served with great dedication. All right. So it's from Honorable Martha Wangari also says, mourning two of my colleagues who I served with from the 11th Parliament, Senator Cheptumo from Baringo and Honorable Malulu Injendi from Malava, pole kwa jamii na marafiki, and may they rest in eternal peace. Absolutely. And we have here Wasam says, I think before our leaders go for regional, continental or universal positions, we need to put our national politics and governance in order to attract others to support our candidate. Because of our conduct, Raila lost because of our instability. Okay. Agumba Steve says, Baba was okay. Our undoing was the political development in ESC. It cost us. Anyway, our excitement though, it cost us our excitement though, and I'm sure the number of Kenyan legislators over there could have made the heads of state feel like Kenyans are bullies. How many people accompanied Djibouti guy? Okay. Okelo Mwalimu says, whoever dismisses or mocks Baba as a result of his recent AUC loss should cage his or her emotions. Baba will single-handedly determine who will be the president in 2027 and must be taken very seriously in Kenya's political space. If Ruto manages to keep him happy, he'll win. Okay. And Kiberenge says, from the 2017 AUC elections in which Amina Mohamed lost, we should have learned that it requires quiet diplomatic lobbying, calculated maneuvers, backroom deals, and strategic alliances. But we were overly theatrical, turning a diplomatic event into a noisy fanfare. Okay. Kimani Kenneth says, if Kenya was serious about winning the AUC seat, there was a better candidate in the name of Ambassador Erastus, who served as vice chair of AUC. Nomination of Raila was for political expediency. Now ameambulia patupu. Okay. Kate Best says, we lost this election when we started meddling in so many issues within and outside the region. Some countries couldn't trust us. Let us lick our wounds and make amends. We aren't that evil as a country. Gabi says, I'm not happy at all, but it's democracy. Baba Raila Amolo Odinga, you fought well, gave it all. Congratulations. It's time to continue fighting for Africa, especially the EAC, which is in the ICU. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says, Mr. Willis, Ruto really tried to convince more than 20 heads of states and can't be taken for granted. The problem in this continent varies from different religious beliefs to other divergent opinions. Otherwise, broad-based plan B, loading. Okay. Alex Mayore says, in my view, even if Kenya presented any other candidate other than Raila, we still were going to fail. Our diplomatic relations are in bad shape. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs should hold a crisis meeting. Okay? Prof, let's come to you now. So what next from here? Because we've spoken about what next for Raila Amolo Odinga, but what next for President William Ruto in terms of the introspect aspect of it? Here you are, pushing a champion, you've been managed. Now what next?
I think first and foremost, this is not the time to celebrate loss. It's not a time to mourn loss. It's a time to take stock of where we are as a country. And this stock-taking moment should also be seen as a wake-up call. The foreign ministry is in a mess. If you look at all the indicators from our position in the Middle East, and calling Palestinians terrorists and calling for the protection of Israel. Israel has been our partner for over 60 years. We know how to handle ourselves on that matter rather than pronouncing ourselves in very populist terms. Then our positions in West Africa, calling people's revolutions against an imperialist state that has been exploiting that part of the world in a vast way. It's all over in the internet. Then, of course, you condemn the polls and all. So you estridge ourselves. Is it a surprise that Ibrahim Traore is in all our matatus? This is a silent rebellion by our younger generation. I saw this in 1986 when all our buses were written Museveni those years. Now, so it's a wake-up call to put our foreign affairs house in order. The second is that Kenya should return to an African-centered foreign policy. We have moved too much into the West, and even our colleagues are calling us puppets of the West. It's not the right thing. Two, we must know the league in which we're fighting. We are a soft power nation. We are not a military nation. And our soft power appeal is what has made us great. So when we go to flex our muscles and call ourselves NATO allies and call ourselves all this is really misguided. We need to come back to our Africa-centered. We need to come to our soft power base, not our hard power base. And finally, whenever we are approaching the African space, we should not read the African space from our lenses. The African space is our last port of call. Those who recall Kenya in 2007, 2008, we were saved by other African Union, which sent Jakaya Kikwete, Kofi Annan, and others to intervene and brought us back to sobriety. And now we got back our country. You cannot, again, go there and play like that is where you push people to exile so that you can inherit their political empire. I don't think that's a good game to play with the African Union. That's why I asked at one point, did Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga jump or he was pushed? Because if the only option you are given is this, what else do you have to take? And I don't think that was a good option for Raila to be pushed to the African Union, which is a very difficult job, so that we can inherit his kingdom in Nyanza. Okay. It was his kingdom in Nairobi and his kingdom in Mombasa or the coast. That was really callous. And I think it's a running moment for us. And we need to take stock of that and say, never again. We are going to be genuine African, and we are going to play a genuine game, and we are going to be honest with ourselves, honest with God, and not honest with other Africans.
Okay. Willis?
I know the first thing that we must point out is that we've now had two referendum, midterm referendum on William Ruto's leadership in this country. The first one was on the 25th of June, 2024. And the people of Kenya unanimously, in breaching parliament and rejecting the finance bill, they actually said we've lost faith in William Ruto as our president. The second referendum is the continental referendum. I do not take it that this was a Raila election. The person who was on the ballot at the AU was William Ruto. And based on his international relations, we had, in the municipal realm, rejected him. He took himself to the continent, hiding behind Raila Odinga, and the continent also rejected him. The calls to Macron must stop, because when the DRC conflict starts, the first thing he makes public is that I have called Macron, I've spoken with him about the conflict in DRC. Why not Ramaphosa? Why not Tshisekedi? Why not Mnangagwa? Why not Lourenço of Angola? Because you have a regional body around here. You are quick to announce how you are talking to Mzungus, thereby hacking the African continent. Why not even say I've spoken with Faki as the first call I've made to find a solution to the conflict in the DRC? So those calls to Macron must stop. Otherwise, Kenya will not get any headway in the continent, because we'll be seen, as Professor says, as just but stooges of other nationalities. The second thing I must say is this. Musalia Mudavadi needs to be fired. The gaffes that we've had in the foreign ministry is not serving the interest of this nation at all. It runs from whether it be national, continental, whether it be it at the EAC level, whether it be it with Western Sahrawi and Morocco, whether it be with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, whether it be with Israel, Palestinians. It's just too much. So there must be, or there should be, a change in the leadership at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The final point I make is this. It reaches a point where William Ruto has to decide whether we are talking about personal interest in pursuit of our diplomacy or national interest. Some of these gaffes that he keeps making, some of these statements, some of these meetings, some of these commitments that he makes internationally, are they for the national interest of the people of Kenya or for his own personal interests? So that we must ask ourselves the question, when rebels in the DRC are hosted in Nairobi and they launch a rebel movement, actually addressing the media in Kenya and saying, we are going to topple the regime in DRC. You ask ourselves, as a country, when you provide safe passage to that group, is it in our national interest to topple the regime in DRC, or is it a personal interest of the leader of the country? When the head of RPF in Sudan, Emeti, is hosted in our State House, when there's an ongoing war in that Sudan with the military in Sudan, is it that in hosting him, are we serving our national interest, or is it a personal interest of the president, that relationship, that maybe they have a personal relationship that is being served? So he must decide that his personal interest is what is going to inform our foreign policy, or it's going to be national interest of the people of Kenya to inform our foreign policy. The loss of Raila, in my view, is significant to the extent that it's now opening up to us the gaps that we keep having on the international plane. If it was any other nondescript Kenyan who had offered himself for election, we will not know these gaps and how it is costing us the continent. It is good that it's Raila, because now he has managed to expose how vulnerable we are internationally. Otherwise, Kenyans would not have known, would not have even paid attention to this election.
Charles.
Oh, thank you so much. I think, Willis, this is not the first time we are losing the African Commission seat. But what I would want to say is that as a country, we need to unite. We have a purpose of working together. There was purpose for fighting for multi-party democracy, and one of the reasons was that people should be able to point out areas which they think the country is not doing well. And by pointing out areas which you think the country is not doing well, does not mean that you hate your country. But there must be diplomacy in our approach to issues, because you cannot tell us that since President William Ruto came in, what he's done is just negative, that there's nothing positive that he has done. So for us to come up with solutions to some of these problems, because, you know, even a cat, if you close it in a cage, even if you give it meat in that cage, if you open for it, it will definitely scratch you. So what we are saying is that we must have a demeanor and a character where we can be able to point out what we think is not right, but also point out what we think is right. Raila Odinga is a peace-loving Kenyan. That's what I can say. He has never liked war. I remember in 2007, he was urged by very many people, carry on, carry on. But he said, no, we cannot let Kenyans die. He has made peace with all presidents, starting from President Moi, who detained him for 8 years. He could not see his family. He never saw his wife, his children for 8 years. But still, Raila Odinga was not bitter. He still worked with President Moi. Even when it was outright that his friend stole his win in 2007, he never had a beef with President Kibaki. He was still calm.
Kibaki did not steal. It's not on record. He never stole.
It's okay. I'm saying what is a common knowledge.
No, it's not common.
Common belief.
No,
well, let's call it a common belief.
It's not common.
Anyway, so even when that happened, President Raila Odinga never had a problem with Kibaki. Even when he had serious problems with Uhuru Kenyatta, he never had problems with him. They still worked together. They still worked peacefully as brothers, and a number of things went on well for the country. And that is why I don't see why it should be a problem if he works with President William Ruto. It is in his character that he does not like war. He likes peace. He may have his weaknesses. So I think what is most important is how do we ensure that we recover the economy of this country, which we lost between 2013 and 2022.
That's how
do you ensure that our country becomes more united? We don't divide ourselves in tribes. We don't divide ourselves in clans. We make sure we work together as a team. And I can say that let's work together as a country. Let's support one another. Let's point out where there are mistakes. But most importantly, let us do what can improve the betterment of Kenya as a country.
Prof, you have a burning statement.
I just wanted to say that it is not good on a television like this to raise issues that are unnecessary. For example, I worked with President Kibaki. I was in that campaign. We worked we worked round the clock. We won that election fair and square, and we still But in the interest of the country, President Kibaki leaned back and saved the country by basically agreeing to share power with Raila Odinga, requested by the African Union, and that's normal. Right. The same case with Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta was, on his election fair and square, he had developed this country in terms of infrastructure. Yeah. We have never known the idea of a superhighway or a road on the air. We now know it, thanks to him. Okay. So let's not really try to draw dichotomies between the successfuls and the failure. It doesn't help anybody. All right. President William Ruto has made his contribution, and he has his good and bad. The same case with Uhuru Kenyatta, because these are not angels, they are human beings. Okay. So when we talk, let's also not raise emotions. Here we came to debate issues, and we are raising them as they are. SADC did not vote with us. Why? Okay. We did not win this election. Why? This is the debate we are having. I don't think at this level we can talk about country like Kenya being in danger, Kenyans being disunited and all that. No, that's not the debate we are having here. Okay. Kenya is at peace, I think. If I'm invited by President Ruto tomorrow, I can have a cup of tea with him, because he's a Kenyan like me. If I'm invited by, the deputy or anybody, I would go. Okay. So let's not raise emotions on the televisions about the risk in Kenya. There's no risk in this country.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for making time.
Just one second only. I want to say this. When we critique these issues, it's not hatred. Okay. It is a quest to better this country. All right. When we say Mudavadi and Koresimoe should go, we are saying our foreign policy has failed, and the people championing it are not serving the interest of our nation. Okay. It has nothing to do with hate. It is just a quest for the best of
Thank you.
And Professor, I'm not against anyone. Yes. I've just said that Raila is a peacemaking, and a Kenyan that loves his country. Yeah. So many people have done so many bad things against him, and he has never raised a finger. Okay. Long live Raila.
Professor Peter Kagwanja, thank you so much for making time. Policy Advisor and Strategist Willis Otieno, Deputy Party Leader Safina, and Charles Owino, Head of the National Communications Center. Thank you very much for making time this evening, and thank you all for the feedback that you sent through. That's where we leave it for now. On behalf of everyone who made this possible, we say good night and God bless.